Welcome to Spirit Journey Collective. I'm your host, Sarah Ty. Get ready for compelling conversations with guests of all walks of life who believe they have found their purpose. Together, we will uncover unique backstories, hearing the raw experiences that led them to the work they are doing today. Let's expand our minds together with the captivating stories and inspiration that awaits. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Spirit Journey Collective. I have a really great guest today. Her name is Terrie Christine. She's an intuitive energy healer and a psychic medium, and we've already been pre-chatting, and I'm so excited to have her on. Thank you so much for being here today, Terrie.
Oh, Sarah, yes, we're going to have some fun.
I know, I love your vibe and your energy, so I'm like, this is great. I'm excited. Why don't you share a little bit with our listeners what it means to be an intuitive energy healer and psychic medium?
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, because people, the first thing they say is, what is that? Intuitive energy healer. Intuitive is using what you feel, that trusting in you. You can walk into a room and say, ooh, something feels weird. If people trust more of that, they'd be more successful in trusting and making decisions, and things would work out a little more smoother. Of course, we're going to have the up and down, but you can't have chocolate cake every day for the rest of your life because it doesn't taste so great after a while. But the intuitive is to work within what I'm trusting between myself and source, energy, God, higher self, whatever you want to call it. Energy healing is the subconscious place, the childhood stuff. It doesn't mean that mom or dad was emotionally or physically abusive. It simply means that in that time and space as a child, you'll have interactions. And those interactions, the child will say something that's not necessarily true. But then now it's part of the blueprint. And as you grow up, it becomes part of your subconscious. But then you're still in the subconscious space, living consciously. People, places, and things will trigger you. And it's the feeling that comes up. It's an opportunity to see things differently, respond differently, act differently. Most of the time, people don't, because they're looking at someone in front of them. They're saying, why did you say that? Why'd you do that? When in fact, it's an opportunity to shift and change. So for me, I help people put their pieces of the puzzle together, bringing the subconscious to the conscious, meaning where we are today, right now, like you and I talking and the listeners hearing, and helping them understand, but also shifting it from that subconscious space. So the end result will look like more support, receiving some of the things they're saying they want, shifting belief systems, more gratitude, more trust, and then knowing the end result is that what I'm telling you, you start feeling more supported, empowered, enlightened, and one with yourself.
I love that answer so much. And it's actually really similar to the way that I read. So I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I love connecting with other readers who see it more from that healing perspective, and also understanding like what you're talking about, what I would call like big T trauma versus little T trauma. Because with my, especially with tarot, I'm sure you're familiar with it. It likes to get in there. It likes to get really like, this is what you gotta heal. This is what you gotta work on. And
Yeah.
so, and I'll have some people tell me, well, my childhood was great. I didn't have any trauma. And that's like, yeah, no, I hear you. But was there moments where maybe your needs weren't being met? Was there moments where
Yes.
you felt silence because maybe you weren't, what you said or did wasn't accepted, socially acceptable, so you buried it? And so it's, I like the explanation because we all have that subconscious struggle that we're not fully aware of. And having someone like you as that kind of like a magnifying glass in a way, bringing that to the surface
Yeah.
is pretty amazing. So, and then I love the way
Yeah.
you explain that.
Yeah. I want to add when you were saying that when someone says, well, I don't have any abusive parents, but we say, I know you say it, that's not what I said. I didn't say you had abusive parents. It's the subconscious of what you're holding on. I would like to give the perfect example because then people will go, I get it now when they say, well, I didn't have any issues. The thing is that I had this client where her father traveled a lot internationally. And in her adult life, she was saying, I can't hold a relationship. There's something wrong, but I don't understand because my parents were wonderful. But these relationships, they just come and go. So what I did was I dug into her subconscious. So I close my eyes and I'm clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient, which means I can see movies in my head. I can hear conversations, and the clairsentient is just knowing. I know you have that too. You just know inside. And then you say, Sarah, I could feel it. I just know. And so I closed my eyes and I saw a movie, and I'll never forget it because it's very profound for me to see the connection of what she was doing. So when I closed my eyes, I saw her dad sitting in the living room on this big fluffy chair. I mean, I remember all the details. And I saw him open up a newspaper. And the point of the newspaper was the fold. So he would open it up and it was wide in front of him. And I saw her coming down these stairs, and she would get and come around the newspaper, almost like peekaboo. She'd go, "Hi, Dad, Dad." She'd go under the newspaper and around. Daddy was not irritated. Daddy would laugh, Daddy would play. But because he was trying to catch up on life and what was happening through the newspaper, since he was way out of the country, and then making sure that he had a connection with her, he would turn that as he was learning about and catching up through the newspaper and playing with her through these little moments in time. He felt unconditional love. He was paying attention to her. He wasn't pushing her away. He wasn't telling her that he'd get back to her. He was fully blown in her as she could see it. Then as an adult, she'd bring a partner in and she would start saying, "You don't call me enough." And he would call her every day. Or he'd say, "I love you." She would say, "No, you don't." As if she needed that extra confirmation of some sort, that she was trying to get back to that unconditional love that her father had given her. She wasn't feeling this between any of her partners. So her comments were sabotaging all of her relationships. So once she understood, she had to learn to accept what she was receiving and see that as the love that they were giving, and sharing what it is that she was wanting more of, but making sure she wasn't squeezing things out of them they could not give her. So that's exactly how someone, and it's just a perfect example of how someone who says they're in this perfect, environment with caregivers that provide all that unconditional love, that's how you can turn into creating sabotage for yourself.
That is really interesting. I don't think I've ever thought of the flip side of that, where it's almost like the bar was set so high already from the beginning that it's like, how can anyone else fill these shoes? And, you've got to be open to let other opportunities in order to experience something beyond. So that's a fascinating way to look at that.
Yes. No, that I think it was so profound for me to help people understand that, we all have limiting beliefs. It's just the environment, and it doesn't have to be something that, isn't labeled a negative experience. And
Right.
she turned her positive into something negative because she was trying to get back to those feelings that her dad created.
And it's another aspect too, is we none of us have escaped conditioning. Right, we all have it. And so even again, your parents could have been instilling these beliefs and conditions in you that weren't necessarily bad, right, but they also weren't helpful. And so
Right.
there's just so many different aspects of it that, like, in hindsight, maybe you had parents that were super supportive, but they really only wanted you to do a certain career type. And now you're feeling called to go someplace different, and that's limiting your beliefs because, oh, well, mom and dad don't want me to do this, even though you're an adult. So there's like all sorts of
Yes.
different avenues with that too.
Yes. And they would be tortured inside saying, "But mom said she wants me to be a doctor and I'm not really liking it." And she continues to do it. And then it doesn't work out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear your backstory and your like and where you started from. Have you always been psychic, or was it something that just felt like that you connected with as you got older? I'd love to hear.
So there's a combination of a few things, but there were two that were the catalysts that took me to being this successful intuitive energy healer and psychic medium. But one way back, I was hit by a car. I was hit by a car at the age of 8. And I didn't know that I died until I was in my late 40s. I had a sound healing session with this modality. And I was already starting to move a little bit into spirituality. So I started playing with these modalities of having them, placed upon me. And I always thought that, I hit by a car and ended up in a coma, and I came back, and then all these magical things started happening. But I really did die, and I relived it through a sound healing session where I saw myself leave my body, and I stood in front of God and Archangel Michael, standing right next to God, to God's right, but my left as I was looking at them. And God was just an essence of energy, but massive, like moving around, like like a cloud of smoke, but transparent. And when I through that session, I left the body. It was. Have you ever watched Charlie Brown Christmas, or one of the Charlie Browns where the teacher is behind the desk going wah 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 wah? So it was like that. I was seeing my energy of where I am today, watch my little 8-year-old self stand in front of God, and God was like, wah, wah, wah. So I couldn't bring it back to what God was saying, but I knew I was having a conversation. That was very profound, realizing that I actually died and some of the things that I needed to go through to let go of that car accident. But when I did have that car accident and I came back as the 8-year-old, there was so much lack because my parents were teenagers when they gave birth to 3 children, and we were not triplets. So when you're being raised by children that gave birth to children, there's a lot of lack, a lot of pancakes for dinner, a lot of eggs for dinner, clothes that didn't fit me. And, you get triggered to this day where I won't wear those short pants. I'm like, no, no, makes me feel like they don't fit. But the car accident, I came back and I started manifesting things. I would think things or feel that I want them. I want them. And I would make it happen. I wanted an essay in the whole entire state of Maryland because I wanted to go to camp. My parents couldn't afford it. And I figured, this is my way to camp. I'm going. And I won in the entire state of Maryland. I was able to go to camp. And so I would see these things, neighbors would give me things, and so started manifesting after the car accident, but not really realizing as a child that I was manifesting. It was so profound that I was getting so many more things than my brother and sister that my mom started saying, no, stop giving them to her, because my mother couldn't afford to equal it out. So she would start telling people no. And so then I had another, and this was now in an experience that I had the father of my children, and we had 2 little girls. But I was told through my grandmother and my mom that you serve your partner, you serve them in every which way, from dinner to intimacy to making them happy, and through what they like to eat, even though it might not be something I was told that from day one and shown it 1,000 different ways. So now I have a partner and we're 14 years in. And that last year, I was so miserable because I kept pouring and pouring and pouring. And what happens when you continue to pour in and not receive? You're taking that cup and emptying it out. I felt so empty and lost and alone. When I realized in that place, I said, if this is what really love is, I'm done. I knew it in my heart and soul that I didn't want to be in this physical body. I was done. So at the end, it was about 3 months before, I got up at 3 a.m. I remember this all as if it was this morning. I got up at 3 a.m. I looked at the clock, so I knew it was at 3 a.m. He was sound asleep. And I had been crying every night for an entire year before that moment because I didn't know how to get out of my situation that I created. Yes, I created it. Went into the bathroom and I laid on the floor with every ounce of my soul. I begged God, take me, just release me from this physical body so that I could have a sense of peace. And so it was a form of lucid dreaming. So I was laying on that floor. I could feel the cold. That was the first thing I remember, feeling the cold on the tiles. And I started feeling this sense of expansion. My eyes were closed, but I was fully awake. So that as that sense of lucid dreaming. So I started feeling this expansion. And as it just sort of melded in my vision with the eyes closed, stars. I literally thought I was in the universe with these stars so close I could reach out and touch them. I had a sense of dampness around me and I could taste it. And then 3 words: love will come. It was just like that. I was in the center of what was saying. So it was literally encapsulating me in that voice. Very masculine, but profound, like, when I heard it, it was like whoosh right back in my body. I stood up and like shook myself and I said, what the hell just happened? Literally, it was like that. I was shaking and I just walked back to bed and I went to sleep and I woke up and my entire life was changed. It was as if God threw a rope down the hole and I climbed out. I felt everything that I want, I'm going to have now. I knew without a doubt. I went to the bookstore that same day. Now, our house was like 1950s. He created that. He'll do the outside chores of the house, come inside, read his newspaper, sit down to a meal that's already set for him. I took care of all the house inside, took care of the kids, and I had a job 9 to 5. I had to do all of that and more. And then he was like, I have to have it this certain way. Again, I know what I did. I poured into doing that. I didn't have time to read any books. I hadn't read books, I couldn't even tell you, over 10 years. But I ran to the bookstore and got Eckhart Tolle, Wayne Dyer, Esther Hicks. These were names at that moment. I had no idea who they were. I was 100% corporate. I was a director of sales making this company millions of dollars. I didn't have any idea what this was. I laid 2 books down and literally I thought I became a speed reader. All of this was making sense. Like, I need more. And Sarah, the truth makes sense. It was making perfect sense to me to understand that there was more to what my sorrow, my pain, my struggle was, that I could understand that there was a different way of seeing things, of believing things, of knowing things. And within 3 months of that spiritual epiphany, I got the strength to leave that relationship. And then it was the journey to reconnect to my soul, to who I really was. Because in that relationship, it wasn't me. It was what I was told to be by other people. And when that happens, your soul is lifeless. You're just existing. Let's put it that way. I wasn't living life, I was existing in it. And so once I left, I started saying, okay, let's get deeper into reading these books. And then I took Reiki. Somebody did it on me and I said, ooh, this is cool. And then I did another one. This is really cool. I think I want to do this. And I did it. I started learning it. And then I left my corporate job and I said, I got to do something that really supports me because I have this entrepreneurial spirit. So I started becoming an esthetician, started my own business. And during that, I started playing with my clients while they were on the table. And then over a while, it wasn't even that long, I started realizing that I could harness the movement of this energy and I could move it to where I wanted to put it. I was seeing things. I said, this is crazy. People would think I'm absolutely beyond crazy because of what I was able to do. But what I started seeing was every single client would jump off the bed and saying, what did you do? I can feel that. Oh my God, they were all saying it. And so with Reiki, the protocol is that, you're just the conduit for the energy. The energy is supposed to go where it is. You hug them and that's it. No conversation. But every time they would say, I can feel this. What happened? What just happened? Tell me. everyone wanted to know that connection. Like we were sharing about the tarot cards, that people use it as a means of being able of visualization, because we're all taught to use our eyes and our ears. But what I was realizing, that I was moving this energy. I see a spot in this body. I'm going to move that energy there. And then I would see this vision. And then I would tell them what I was seeing. And then they would say, wow, that happened to me when I was 8. And then it just started forming into that. And then what I realized, and this was from all corporate stuff, is, you want to be really good, you got to learn. So I took some courses. I took an 8-month intuitive development course, and I was able to really understand what these feelings were, how to supersize into other things like scanning bodies remotely and face to face, and doing all these exceptional superpower things. I mean, it's fun. Let's just play like a kid. So the superpower things, and then seeing profound results. That's what this is all about.
That is such an incredible story. Like, I love so much of it because it's not like you've always been intuitive, it sounds like, but you had to find it, and it sounds like you found it. How long have you been doing this work? Because it sounds like it's been pretty recent.
No, 19 years.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, when someone starts and beginning, then you're still doing it. Remember we were talking about, and this again before the show started, we were talking about being on other platforms, that we could use it as our sandbox, the playing, but we get to get paid to be playing, right? And it's practice. So, when you're working on connecting to people's energy on those platforms, may it be a psychic reader or whatever it was, but you have to learn to go fast because they're paying per minute and people want those answers within seconds. So it actually teaches an intuitive person, which is a psychic, so we can use the word intuitive, to connect very quickly, trust what they're picking up, and give it to the client. So over all those years, I've learned to, give it quickly, give the answers, if it's remotely, because I still do, it's about 50-50. I do remote work and I do face to face because I have a private studio in the Metro DC area in Bethesda, Maryland. But it's being able to use this energy and harness this energy. And it may sound like just started, but because of the longevity, it's rare that I see anything new. But girl, when I see it new, I'm like, whoa, there's something new here. Let's dig into this. But you can figure it out so easily because, there's so basic limiting beliefs. There really isn't much that I haven't seen or learned or saw, that if it's a different way of seeing thing in my mind's eye, I know how, whatever it represents, like fish swimming in the sea. You could have a clownfish and an angelfish. Well, someone's really funny and angel is like, oh, they're so perfect. It's usually a caregiver, a parent, right? One could jump out of the sea and swim away. That means somebody left the family unit. So there's usually patterns that I see within that. And my visions aren't seeing you and mom arguing. It'll be, light coming around, and then I'll feel the energy of a distance, and I'll feel that means an emotional disconnect, that they're struggling. The parent were emotionally disconnected because they might have had more than one child, or was a single parent, or had a job, and and the other partner, that father, the other partner worked a lot. So there's a lot of things that can project what an emotional disconnect is, and also having it from their own parents that created that emotional disconnect. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, 19 years. That's a long time. I think it was more like, it sounds like you found it later in life, and you don't, because you mentioned being in your 40s, and I assumed you were just, it was a few years ago. You look very close to, 40s. So, um,
I tell everybody I'm
but
39 again.
it's funny. I don't know, it's a total side note. My sister and I, we look a lot alike, but I'm 6 years older than her. And so recently she's like, oh, we should go and pretend to be twins again. So do you want to be 29 or do you want to be 35? And I was like, I'll be 29. Please.
Exactly. Exactly.
But no, that's amazing. And I love the way you also just described the intuitive aspect versus like the psychic, because it's basically the same, right? But intuitive, I feel like for me, when I think of psychic, I think of like perfection in a way, and like you have to know. And intuitive is more like it's a softer knowing, and it just, for me, I've always connected more with the word intuitive because it just feels more authentic, I guess. I love that explanation, and I think it makes it very tangible for those that don't understand it too.
When we're using the word intuitive, psychic seems to have, because it's so old, and back, when we're grandparents, like, they think psychic is the snake oil salesperson standing on the stage trying to sell you something that's not going to work. But over time, when we started opening up to trusting, your intuition is a part of being psychic, meaning trusting, and then being able to trust your connection to source. And I'm going to use the word God, but that's just because everybody will look up. But trusting your connection to God and being able to receive your answers, which that's what I do. In a deep, profound way, my ultimate reason behind, as I shared, that emotional turmoil that I was going through, I never want anyone to feel that they have to leave their physical body because they're not receiving love. So when they come to me, they're in a state of turmoil, meaning they need clarity, or they keep attracting the same thing, or they're living in lack. So I understand what they're going through then, but they don't have to go any deeper. They can float up from there. And then when they're working with me, I'm giving them, I call it the pieces of their puzzle, helping them see that their childhood that they can't remember, because it's the subconscious that I'm bringing forward, helping them understand that they're attracting the same partner because mom may have had self-esteem issues, and like I did, poured into my partner so much, so much, so much, and really living it that I couldn't see it, living that pattern of what I only knew. So my neighbor down the street may not be doing, well, is not going to be doing the same thing I was doing because her parents weren't showing her that. Her grandmother wasn't showing her that. So she doesn't understand that which I created because that was the only thing I knew. So once we become fully aware of what our patterns are, and many people say, okay, just tell me so I can do it on my own. Well, I can tell you lots of things, but I have to be able to connect to your energy to bring forth your subconscious so I can share with you what it is you're doing. I give you tips and tricks on how to change those thoughts and those actions. And I've also shifted it from your subconscious. Most people can't do it on their own because they can't remember the subconscious. They can't remember when they were 3 years old. They can't remember or see the patterns. Like, I really didn't see the pattern of what I was doing with my partner because it was what I was shown to do. I didn't know anything else but to do that. So it can become a little bit of a challenge doing it on your own because you cannot go to your subconscious on your own. So I say the first step is meditate, quiet your mind, connect to source, receive your answers. Number two, take action on those answers. Don't just push them away, and don't just say, oh, that was just in meditation. You must take action on those things. But then if you're having fear, procrastination, or the fear of the end result, you're not going to move into taking action. So that's why people such as yourself and I will help guide the person so that they can get out of the fear and take action and understand the challenges that are keeping them from doing that, and shifting it so they go, I feel better. I can take a breath and I can move by taking baby steps into the things that I want.
Yeah. No, 100%. I love the accountability piece that you put to that. That you don't, because I get that too sometimes where people come to me and they want me to just give them the black and white answer, tell them exactly what to do, or tell them exactly what's coming, which I don't personally believe the future is set in stone, because I'm a huge believer in we create our future in the
That's
now.
right.
Yeah, so
That's right.
my biggest thing is empowering them with information that's coming through, and so like you said, sometimes it's a lot of information, but if they're just looking for a step by step, tell me exactly what to do, the information's not going to land the way it needs to, because it's
Right.
there. It's kind of like giving you the ingredients to make a cake. and they're saying, okay, make the cake. And you're saying, well, this is what you need to make the cake. And they're saying, but you need to do it for me. And you're saying, no, this is the ingredients for you to take and do something with. Because your cake might look
That's
different
right.
than the way I might make your cake, because it's your cake, right? So
Yes.
It's time to take a short break from our wonderful speaker. Are you in the need of guidance around love, career, family, life, or purpose? Embark on a spiritual journey inward with an intuitive tarot reading. Depending on what you're needing and looking for, I offer private one-on-one sessions as well as personalized email readings. It doesn't matter what the question is. A reading with me provides connection with your higher self, offering curated personal messages, or what I like to refer to as spiritual roadmaps, guiding you to the future outcome you desire. Readings are insightful and affordable. If you'd like more information or to schedule a reading with me, please see the link below.
That psychic work is the strongest probability in their energy field. So you could be telling someone some of the psychic answers that you are visualizing or what your superpowers are to share it with them. And then they come to you and say, oh, that didn't happen. Oh, I got a flash. I love a flash. This is the perfect example. Client came to me and she was saying, I have this partner and, he just doesn't understand. I want certain things. And I said, why don't you manifest them? Okay, what do I do? Right? What do I do? I said, visualize. I said, let's play games. Visualize a certain shoe that you want. I said, let's notch it up. Let's do a designer. Jimmy Choo. Visualize Jimmy Choo shoes. You want a pair of shoes. Visualize the shoes. Visualize putting them on. Visualize buying them, right? I said, you don't even have to ask the guy. Visualize, right? She says, okay. So a week later, she came to me and she said, I did everything you said and it didn't work. I said, okay, well then tell me what happened. Look at this smile. She says, okay, he came over and he says, okay, it's Mother's Day or whatever celebration it was. He says to her, what do you want? She says, I want a pair of shoes. He said, okay, let's go. Get in the car, get to the shoe store. They get in. She says, okay, I want those pair of shoes. And he says, okay, well, let's get two. So she got another pair of shoes. So they get back in the car, driving home. And he says, baby, I loved doing that for you. But you know what? I thought you were like a Jimmy Choo kind of girl. Now, listen up, everybody. We all know there are lots of brand names out there. Lots. What kind of guy, like, instantaneously tells her, I thought you were a Jimmy Choo kind of girl. And that was the exact shoe that she was trying to manifest. But what happened? Now, here's the caveat to this. When we started manifesting together, I was always giving her the tools and the tips and tricks on doing that. The first thing out of her mouth was she goes, oh no, that's too expensive. You immediately put the stop sign up to, I'm not going to receive that. She immediately said it. Once she says it, that's what she put out to the collective energy. I said, girl, delete, delete, delete. I said, you got to get that out because if you're manifesting it, allow yourself to receive. Be grateful that you could create that and have fun with it. But because she already set that caveat up for him not to do it, because she's already said it in the midst of me going back and forth with her, he was willing to do it when he shared it in the car coming home after he bought these other shoes for her. So you could be telling yourself that you want certain things, but on the other end, you're saying, that's too expensive, or I may never get it because I don't have a college degree, or I don't have blah, 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 blah. Delete, 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 because I got it all. You got to make sure that you are not being counterintuitive in the things you're saying that you want and the things that are coming at you. That was the perfect example to share exactly what can happen, because you're not wrong, my dear, when you're giving them their answers. I'm not wrong, but it's within the person and how they're thinking, how they feel about certain things, and how they can negate that end result.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love. I got chills from that story. I mean, of all the shoes, that was. You're right. I mean, that's just like, why would he save that one? And it was like basically letting her know, like, hey, this could have been yours. It's it's possible. And so that's like a good example of like when you get a reading and you get information, that information is supposed to help you break out of those beliefs, and so what are you going to do with those? So I love that. From here, I think that this might be a perfect segue. I know we talked a little bit earlier about how you would be willing to showcase kind of what you do. I don't know if that could be a good segue into doing like a mini reading from there.
Yes. All right. You okay? Can I
Yeah,
do that? To connect
yeah,
your energy?
absolutely.
You know, I've worked with people. I was on that reality show, and it was very interesting when I connect to energy. Everything is energy. It's not like you have your own energy and I'm not supposed to touch it. Everything is energy. So I asked because we're on this show, but I didn't really. Once you open up to have this conversation, your energy is already open to for allowing me to do it. I don't really have to ask. So I wanted to make that clear for people who go, "Oh, she didn't ask." Well, in a sense, I did, but this is an intimate thing that we're doing when I'm connecting to people's energy. There are 5 ways that a person can create limiting beliefs. So number 1 and 2 are dad and mom, or mom and dad like figures, like grandparents. So those are the first 2 ways of picking up limiting beliefs. God, someone else, and something else. For you, you have a strong dad block. And it when I first connected to you before we started the show, it sort of went at an angle. When I'm doing it now, it clarified me. You have dad and God. So let me explain how those can overlap. So here you are, little girl. Let's see how old you are. You are really young. Whoa. The strongest one you have right now is from the when you were in the uterus, when you were in the womb. So this is going to be deep for people to understand. So let me explain to this how this works. When a child is in the womb, it's like being in a swimming pool and your head is underwater. And when you're in the pool by yourself, most people have had the experience of being in a pool and swimming underwater. If there's no other people in the pool or everyone is just standing still, you can hear anyone who's on the deck if they're talking, but you may not be able to understand the words. You can literally make out the tones. So, dad tone, deep and masculine. Woo, 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 woo. Mama tone, higher. And, you can clearly see here that it's a man or woman. When a baby is in the womb, they got the water and the fluid wrapped around. So it's very similar, like being in a swimming pool, right? So the baby will hear the tones outside of the womb. The baby will hear the dad lower tone or the other partner. The baby will hear the higher tone, the mom. The baby gets extra things happening when the mom is upset. The little baby will start feeling the love bubble condensing and it doesn't feel so safe. And oh my gosh, because she might be upset or she's crying. So she pulls it in, she's upset. So the pattern of what's going on outside of the female body when the baby's in there, if there are any arguments, lower tone, higher tone, that lower tone could project, the higher tone could get upset, condense, then whoo, 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 meaning crying. That's a pattern. Projection, crying, that's a pattern. Baby will come out and then everybody's so happy at a party. Mama's holding the baby. The baby, she goes, "Oh, I need a break," gives the baby to the dad, and the baby starts crying. Most people have seen this at a party. Baby starts crying. Usually it's because that tone, that voice is not safe. So I'm just giving that as example. When I saw yours, so when I see it as the womb, it'll be out here. I look at a ruler from 1 to 7, because usually limiting beliefs are created before the age of 7. So I'll look at a ruler and that's what I looked up. And if it's before 1, I saw the energy come right at me. So that's telling me it's in the womb. So what I'm going to ask you is that, were there any challenges between your mom and your dad? And you may not know, but usually stories as we grow up that they were struggling with, usually money, sometimes infidelity, sometimes, but it's usually money or hardships of some sort that they may be struggling with. Do you recall any of those patterns? I know there's one because I can feel it. There's that clairsentient. I can feel it.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there was money. I'm sure. I mean, they were, a young married couple in their 20s, but you know what I mean? They were um, trying to get settled and things like that. I was the second child, but the thing that comes to mind for me is my dad has a temper, and I grew up witnessing that. So and it's been around since before they were even married. So
There
I'm
you
pretty
go.
sure that I probably heard it before I was even born.
Yes, because you even said that he had it before they were even married. And now you remember, as a child growing up, he had it. So it's a pattern already. You would have heard it automatically. That's why I put my hands up going, there it is. So now for you, you will probably experience that if you had a boss that was a man or masculine energy, if it's, let's call it aggressive, meaning um, projecting, okay? You probably shut down, or you back up, or you're like, okay, I'll take that in and calm yourself down. Because having a dad that has that short fuse, he's going to have it on mom. There's going to be patterns which are going to come out, and masculine energy is not 100% safe. I know that's it because I just felt a shake like around my arms. Arms are creation, and my torso shook a little bit. So that's fear. And it doesn't have to represent full fear of I don't want to be around men. No, there's certain things that'll trigger you into, oh, I got to pull away from that. I don't like that. I may not be listening to them. I'm just going to let them do their thing. There's certain things in you, and I know I'm on it, that you've been able to maneuver that allows you to not go into that I don't feel safe mode. And it can be you just shut down, like shut down your ears, or like that's them or whatever. But you've been able to, I know I'm on it. And there's some that are more profound. You have to think about it if it's not coming up now, but you're going to get off this call and you're going to say, oh, now I remember, because every time somebody raises their voice, I'm out of the house.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because, and it's interesting when you're saying that about men in general, like, yeah, they're even men that aren't yelling aggressively, if they're coming off very strongly, where it's more assertive, but it's yeah, it does. It makes me kind of feel not very safe.
Sure,
And yeah, that's
exactly. So
interesting. I've
that's
not
it.
thought. Mhm.
Yes. So now what you can do is, especially with someone who's in a, because masculine can be also appear in a feminine body, very dominant boss or very dominant girlfriend, right? You can practice when you get that feeling with someone that's close to you. And you can say, I've had some family, history with aggression. And I know that you're not raising your voice at me, but I'm going to work on this so that I can feel more safe. And it's not that, you're saying you, but I don't want to own that. And so, meaning owning that is allowing that trigger to make you feel different. And that's where you're owning it, right? And so, practicing on closer individuals when you get that trigger feeling and say, I want to work on this more, and realize that that person is having that feeling, responding in that action. And even if there's something you said and they responded in that way, it has nothing to do with you because that's their trigger. So you have to get into that pattern of saying, this is not mine. I'm not going to let this happen. There's no room in this body for this to happen. There's 5 sentences I can give you. And when you go back, I want you to write these down. I'm an infinite being. I reclaim my power. This no longer serves me. I send it back where it came from. And thank you. And when you repeat that, what you're doing is that you're not allowing that interaction or that experience to affect the physical body and then get you into that groove of not feeling good or the rotating of a story in your head. What you do is you'll say those 5 sentences until there's nothing. There's no story about it. There's no feeling. And you literally moved your energy out of it and you reclaimed yourself.
Okay. Thank you. It's actually really profound that this is the message that came through, because I've been doing a lot of healing around this without necessarily realizing, like seeing the ties of it until now. I'm able to actually be like, oh my gosh, because so my father and I were not in contact with each other. I've been no contact with him for several years because of his behavior. But I've had, unfortunately, like you mentioned, I've had the relationships that repeated this cycle with the yelling and the temper, and I finally was like, no more, and that's essentially what started my own spiritual journey. I went like 3 years without being in a relationship and really focusing on my own relationship. But I'm with a partner right now who is so vastly different than any other partner I've ever had. And mainly in the temper department. I mean, no, not only in the temper. There's so many things that he does. And I'm like, what? This is not in my handbook. I don't know how to respond to this because it's healthy. And,
Yes.
but one of the things is, I've been able to, if something bothers me, I'm able to express it. And he's never once shamed me or silenced me or gotten mad at me for my feelings, which has been so healing and triggering all at the same time. It's really been like a whole mess of like, I'm safe, I'm not safe, I'm safe, I'm not safe. And when I'm not safe, it's because I'm afraid of what's going to come because of what I've experienced in the past. And then when it doesn't come, I have to kind of like lean back into that safety, like, okay, I'm okay. But it's been this back and forth. But when you're talking about just like men in general who have that more aggressive energy, it also makes me think of the women who I know who have that masculine assertive energy that have come in contact too. And what I've done in the last several years is more like retreat and pull away, which, I think I needed that. But now that I'm trying to get my business out there and put myself out there, I've noticed I have this deep fear of how those that have that more masculine assertive energy, how are they going to relate to me, or am I safe to put myself out there even with other people who might interject with their own and project their own feelings that could feel unsafe. And so I know it's kind of separate, but I feel like, and I've been feeling this for a while with my partner, because like it's just been a huge healing journey with him. But I've noticed that there's something about him that I know it's supposed to help me in my personal life, and I haven't been able to like tie it in. And this conversation is making me realize, like, oh my gosh, like he's showing me that I can be assertive. I could be in my power without being the fear, having that masculine fear beyond, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna sit with this.
Yes.
I'm like, this is very,
Yes.
very relevant in a way that I didn't
Yes.
expect.
Yes. I love that you just said that, because when I get right to the core, the first thing they say is, I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect it. Because again, subconscious, and I go to where it was created. So it was created within you, still baking in the oven, and mom and dad and his short fuse, and then the patterns, and then he continued it. So I went right to when it was created. And so it's not going to be difficult, because now you're starting to see, wow, I started working on that before I even knew. So you're living intuitively. Congratulations. I want to do something about it. Congratulations. I'm going to do whatever it takes. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm definitely gonna sit with this, and it is just like, I mean, I already knew I was healing a lot of my father wounds with my partner just from experience. Like I said, it's been that, you know, I expect this, but he didn't do that. I expect this, but he didn't do that. And then not only, so that's been a thing, but just realizing that there's so much more of I have so much more of a block when it comes to connecting with people that's beyond, what I even realized. That's the part that I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see now why I'm in this safe relationship, so I can learn how to be safe within myself, even when I'm dealing with people who might showcase some of the behaviors that makes me feel unsafe, if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
Yes.
That was amazing. So yeah, from here, I would love to ask, what's a collective struggle that you see a lot with your clients? Like one main one that you see over and over and over. And then what's an advice you'd give for that for those that might be listening who are like, oh yeah, I struggle with that too.
hmm it's very interesting. It's all over the board. I'd love to say, okay, but a topic is love, self-love, feeling safe with love. People say, when I say you're not safe, no, nobody's like hitting me, or no. Safety, like you said, is a feeling of being able to speak your truth without judgment, being able to feel like you can play and not be ridiculed or judged, right? And, safety is a big thing. And I'm going to say something that's going to surprise you. A lot of people don't understand their emotions, meaning they'll lay on my bed. My private sessions in a room, they'll lay on the bed and they're fully dressed because I have a massage table fully dressed. And I'll start with one hand on the heart and the other on the stomach. And I'll start picking up and I'll listen to what they're saying. And I might be picking up frustration, and they're verbalizing sadness or they're verbalizing rage. And because here's the example on this one. You have caregivers that are busy, and one is doing the yard and the other one is in the kitchen, and the kids are playing with toys. And listen to this. You had that toy. Do you remember the one with the stick that sticks up and they're little circles and they're big circles? And you had to put big circles and little circles like a pyramid, right? And the kids putting the small ones on the top can't understand. They get frustrated. The mom is in the kitchen, the kid's going, "Oh," right? If the mom doesn't stop to go to the child, get down with the child on her knees or on her bottom herself and say, I understand your frustration. Because in the moment the child is feeling that emotion, they don't understand what that emotion is until someone points it out to them. And so when the parent comes over and explains, I understand your frustration. Let me help you see it differently. But it takes an adult or a supervisor or a guardian to stop long enough to what they're doing. But because all of the things that are put upon us as adults to make ends meet and do the things we have to do to live certain lifestyles, that they're not understanding, I mean, the caregivers are not understanding that this child doesn't understand this feeling or this emotion. So I can always tell when an adult comes to me. I do see children as young as 4, but most of the adults come to me and they don't know or understand their emotions. I have to now clear their subconscious about being able to connect deeper into their emotional state. I had a couple, this is very profound. I had a couple where the woman, the wife, was given to the grandmother because the mother couldn't take care of her anymore. At the age of 6, the grandmother was very old. So the grandmother now is trying to take care of herself and is now as a 6-year-old. The 6-year-old decided, I'll figure it out on my own. She had to figure out her own emotions because grandmother was taking care of her own health needs, right? So now here she's a full-blown adult and a mother, or excuse me, and a wife. She's a mother too, but a wife. When they came to see me, the husband was 1 foot out the door emotionally because he was frustrated. And yes, I could feel that. I knew he knew his feelings. In his upbringing, he had parents that explain to him his feelings, his emotions, his drive, his passion. His grandmother was so connected, saying, "You're so passionate, you're so this." So he understood everything. So when they had their ups and downs, and in the down, she would rage at him and he would say, "Why are you acting like that?" She goes, "I don't understand. I'm just a little frustrated." And he's seeing rage. So then I had to tell him. Now I had to tell her her story. She did share that it was six, but I said, "Oh, now I get it." And I started seeing all the movies in my head. And I said, "You had to figure it out on your own. And your spouse doesn't understand why you don't understand his feelings. Because the reality is, you don't know them. You don't even know your own." So what I did was I said, "Okay, husband, you're going to have to become the teacher. When you see her in an emotional state, explain to her, this is sadness or this is joy." I said, "I know it sounds simple, yet it's very profound, because once you start explaining it to her, she's going to understand that feeling. So when you come with that same feeling, she's going to really understand it now." They came to me a month after that. He was 2 feet in the relationship. He said, "I know that I had doubt. I don't anymore. I understand her in a different level, in a different light. She is my person for the rest of my life." And now she felt heard, because she couldn't understand why he wasn't hearing her, but he couldn't understand why she didn't understand her emotions. So once the two of them got together, they weren't looking back. They were so bonded and connected because they were able to work on a deeper level of understanding each other.
I love that. I mean, an emotional regulation, I think, is one thing that's not talked about a lot. I think a lot of people missed that boat, unfortunately, and so that's hard to do as an adult. You know what I mean? But
Yes.
I love that story so much because she was able to have the support she needed right there and willing to be that support for her, but you just kind of needed to help them see that from the bigger picture. And
Yes, they wanted to save their marriage. They wanted and were willing to do whatever it took. So
yeah,
for both of them to come and receive what I was saying was telling me they weren't looking back, they were looking forward. And being
yeah,
able to do the work together gave him an opportunity to say, "I doubted, but now I have no more doubt. She is my forever person." And
yeah.
her understanding, now feeling safe that he's hers as well.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, we need more of that, I think. And, it's so interesting. Like, as a parent, that's actually when I started realizing, like, my own things. Like, oh my gosh, I need to help my daughter regulate her emotions. But how do I do that if I don't know how to regulate my emotions? You know what I mean? So it's like, it's this whole cycle. And so, now, she's 8, but she'll tell me how she's feeling, and
Mm-hmm.
she's able to catch herself even when she's on the verge of like a meltdown. She's able to kind of reel it back in and tell me how she's feeling. So then we're like, okay, that's what we got to
Mm-hmm.
focus on. That's where this behavior is stemming from. And I feel like that kind of awareness is priceless. It really is.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
if I'm going to add that her responses are also from your dad's short fuse, because what happens is that you're at the dinner table, you're talking, you're as a child feeling free and sharing. And if he got triggered and then his fuse went off, what'll happen is now there's safety issues in communicating. And so she'll she'll restrict some of the things that she wants to say for fear of retaliation or a trigger. So that also communication can show up like it is for her, but she's learning to communicate better. So good for her too.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, like I mentioned, repeating some cycles, I'm sure there's some of that wound with her, that wound trauma with her as well that's similar. But I definitely am glad that she feels safe enough to express herself and is learning to do that.
Mm,
Because yeah, as
yeah.
an adult trying to figure out how to do that, like, you know, communication is so underrated.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that fear of communication is definitely something that I'm working through, but trying to make it so it doesn't repeat for her. So it's, yeah, it's that
Mm.
internal work and having someone
Oh,
being willing to show you that. So like with you, with, you know, as far as like seeing a lot of people who come to you who don't know their emotions, but having someone like you to guide them and say, hey, what's going on inside, and getting them curious and enough
yes.
to look into that. And one thing I was just going to say is about your energy that I just love is you have this almost like childlike energy when you get really excited. It's just, you just get like very like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that because that's very, you
Yes.
know, like in that child energy of like, oh, this is exciting, you know, and I just love that. That's
Yes.
so cool. It's very
Yes.
freeing to
This is
see.
this is fun. And when we have the childlike energy, what happens is curiosity kicks in. And then it's trusting. Because think about it, when you're a child, you're jumping in the leaves and everything is going to be okay. And you're going to jump off the bench and everything is going to be okay. And the same thing with this work. When you're having this energy and it's childlike fun, everything is okay and it's all going to work out because I believe in the truth. I'm the seeker of the truth, and some people don't want to hear the truth, and that's when it comes back at us. But I'm like, I'm just the messenger.
Right. Oh, I've been there. I would love to shift to what I like to call synchronicity story time. It's one of my favorite segments just because and then you've shared a few already. So I don't know if you have like a small synchronicity story you could share, just kind of either a positive paranormal story or something that just like lined up perfectly. And again, I know you've shared a few throughout, so I don't know if you have any other up your sleeve.
Yes, positive paranormal. I just got a flash because, I trust so much. The flash is the reason that I need to share. And God's telling me, don't deviate from that. Just share, even though it may be a personal story, because I do it throughout my sessions. But it's not about me. It's because God is telling me, you have to relate to this. So I was working in a salt cave out in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I did it once a month for 5 years straight. Never missed a single one, 5 years. I drive 2 hours one way for an hour session because I was very dedicated and I loved the woman who owned the place. She actually shut down since then. So if you try to look for me there, COVID, she hung on for a year after and couldn't make it. But it was a group energy clearing, and the room was packed. There were 10 people because it was a small salt cave room. And when I walked in, this woman was making this movement so fast that I thought it was like a movie. I thought it was this cartoon. I said, man, I've never seen anybody move so much in my life. And it was the first time that I saw someone taken over or having a connection to a non-physical that took over what she was doing. That's another story, so we're going to put that aside. However, when I was in the room and she was the second person I was working with, and I walked over and I got this feeling, this essence, and I got a slight push or leaning against on my arm. And so I didn't see it in my mind's eye, but I said it. I asked the woman, do you have a small boy? Do you have a child? She sat up and became more of her. And she goes, no, why? Am I going to have a baby? And I said, no, I'm just asking. She laid back down and started doing her little thing again. So I continued to work with her. And then I moved all around the room and worked with everybody. And the energy was shifting that you couldn't even hear anyone breathing. That's how I knew the woman who had something going on with her had shifted the energy in the room. When I left the room, I was the first one out. And I went to the owner and I said, ooh, I got to tell you what happened. The first thing out of her mouth, she never tells me anything before I go in the room. If she knows anything in advance, she'll only tell me out after I'm done, as if she's trying to, prove that I'm always right. And I said, oh my God, I gotta tell you. She said, did you see the little boy? My head went, and how did you know? She said, the mother and daughter that was in the room, not the one that was kind of doing all her things. There was another set, a mother and daughter in the room. She said, they came to you because her 8-year-old son died by a freak accident. He was on a roller coaster with the girl that was in the room, one of those pop-up amusement park ride kind of things, you see. And it was a small child roller coaster ride. At the end of the ride, they put the brakes on so hard, and he was so small that the bar was leaning right there at his chest. When he was coming forward to stop, they stopped it so hard that everyone hit the bar. It hit him right in the chest and stopped his heart. It hit him that hard. He died, fell over onto his sister's lap. Done. They couldn't save him by the time the ambulance came. So he was in the room helping me with the other woman who was doing her own little thing. It was so profound. And I realized that they can come and help you. As it does happen after that experience. I have it happen occasionally, but it's usually a family member that will help. Like I had one uncle come in when I was working with this woman. Her whole bottom, from her hip, she was laying on her back. So from her hip to her thigh, it literally like moved to the left, to the right, and tilted. And she went, "What?" And I heard in my head a masculine voice, "I just healed your cancer." And I started crying and I said, "Oh my," I mean, literally, I get involved so deeply when such profound things happen that you just are so grateful to be in that space. I'm more grateful. It's not about me being the one, it's about being there. It's like one with like magic. And those things happen so profound that you just cry with gratitude. You cry with being able to know, I'm feeling it now, of being able to know that that person doesn't have to experience living in cancer or experience living in suffering that you lost a loved one. It's so profound that it just makes your heart so grateful. That's the big thing, the synchronicity of all of that. It's so profound.
Wow. I got chills just hearing that story. I mean, that's amazing, especially to be part of such a big healing journey and, not even realize that was going to be the end result, right? I mean, just realizing you were right where you needed to be at the right time and that conduit, and that's incredible. Well, I feel like we could talk so much longer. I really just love your energy. I love your stories, all your wisdom. I'm just
Yes,
so
yes,
grateful you
yes.
were here, but I know you have someplace you need to be, and we're already, I think, at about an hour and a half. So, how can our listeners find you if they want to work with you with any of the services you offer?
Oh, thank you so much for that offer. So you can find me on my website, terriechristine.com, and it's TERRIE. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook. I do some celebrity picture readings. In a picture, there's a blueprint of the energy of the person in picture. So I'll do readings on TikTok for celebrities, and some of them, the Cardi B one blew me away. I'm like, oh my God, that one was good. I have two of them. So there you can find me. Google my name, Terrie Christine, and you're going to find pages after pages of podcasts similar to this to help you help yourself. There is so many avenues to choose from, but I'm here to be a piece of your puzzle to help you. So thank you so much. And oh, by the way, we forgot the book. I've written a book, The Secret Power of You. It's one of your tools for success. There are simple yet profound techniques in here to help you see your limiting beliefs and how to shift out of it. You can find it on Amazon.
Thank you for adding that. I will be sure to put all the links in there that you shared, and especially your book. I can't believe we forgot to ask about your book, but yes, I'll be sure to get that in there too. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. This has really been such a privilege and a really great conversation.
I am so grateful to be here, and I'm honored that you said yes.
Thank you for joining me on another inspiring episode. Remember, your purpose is a unique and unfolding path. I hope these conversations have ignited a spark within you. Until next time, keep exploring, growing, and embracing the beautiful adventure of connecting with your purpose. Stay tuned for more meaningful conversations. If you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for joining me on this journey.